It's an adventure I started some years ago, mostly to try to get evidence into practice in my local setting, because I had many things I wanted to know more about, and my textbooks were not just answering this. I actually built up an evidence base to show them that for malaria, you need to take tablets. If your malaria is not complicated, you only take injections when maybe you are vomiting or you are having severe malaria and you would need some infusions. Generally, there's a practice that people want to use injections, demand for more injections. I had this argument even with my colleagues who felt like, no, if you don't give them, they won't trust you. What has happened is that a lot of my colleagues look up to me. They reach out to me sometimes for evidence. And generally, the truth is I just tap this evidence from the existing networks that are there, and then I share with them.
I lead the Africa Evidence Network. We're a free information sharing network, essentially. There is a shortage of systematic reviewers within the continent, we know that. We've actually recently done a survey around capacity for evidence synthesis in Africa, and we did find that health dominates and that there is a need for more social scientists engaged in evidence synthesis.
Part of my being here is, I suppose, to plead for resilience from this community that sometimes feels overlooked in decision making, and then also to ask for the broadening of the practice to other areas of life. We know what is happening in the lives of people. We know from censuses, for instance, who owns what, in what part of the country. We know how steep the differentials are, but we're not acting on those kinds of things. And so for me, the big issue is to ensure that the voice of evidence, the voice of measurement is actually heard differently in the rooms where policymakers sit, like cabinet rooms.
When you do manage to get evidence used and decision makers to engage with the evidence, there's always existing relationships. And so building those relationships up front, I think, is really essential. Where we've managed to engage with decision makers and provide evidence that's useful to them has come from relationships and a lot of groundwork of getting to know who people are and what they're doing. That's been really key.
Some of the work we've done, we've had successes because of the relationships we've built, because of the collaborations we've had with these people. What we've done as AFIDEP is to get members of parliament interested in evidence. I work a lot with government officials, but maybe I should say with the users of the evidence. You know, they may be in government, but they may be in media, they may be in civil society. So as people who are synthesizing evidence, who are generating evidence, I think collaborations with the users of this evidence from the very beginning throughout the process to the end is so critical.
Many programs in Africa are running, there are duplications of efforts, and some of the policy leaders don't know. Even where they would want to take action, they have no evidence. They have no basis of taking action. We have been mostly engaged in monitoring government programs, policies, and projects. We have not been evaluating. The last decade was mostly on monitoring. When you monitor, you find teachers are there in classrooms, but are the children learning? So now the element of learning achievement of these pupils after you have injected in all the other materials is an evaluation. You can't get it for monitoring. Because without evidence, how do you improve the evidence of the people? How do you know that the people are improving or not improving? You can't know.
If we don't deal with education quite differently from what we have, certainly in the past 23 years of our young democracy, I think we will fail successive generations of our people. I think evidence is going to make a big difference. Apple has just launched the 8th series of their telephone in a decade. And you look at the rate of change in technology, but we're not seeing an equivalent rate of change in the social policies that make a difference to the lives of very poor people. And that's where I think that we need to focus the attention and the dynamism of our evidence-based community.
The number of people with some experience already of doing systematic reviews is really encouraging, and I think the real potential lies in growing teams now, in growing depth, so that there are leaders who can showcase their work and begin to develop the depth of experience that's needed to be centres of excellence across the continent.
we need to get evidence into clinical practice in Africa, and this is possible. And the only way we could do it in a sustainable fashion is tapping from the existing networks.